Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the 10th lecture on Embedded System Design course. So, whenever I say previous lecture or previous unit, you just see the top right corner. So, where you can find a suggested video, just click on that to navigate to that video. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe to the channel for more videos on embedded system design. And coming to the today's lecture, we'll be seeing about other sensors and actuators. We have discussed some sensors and actuators in the last lecture. So we'll be seeing about some more sensors and actuators in this lecture. In last lecture, we have studied about LEDs, 7-segment display, optocoupler, as well as the stepper motor. So in this, we'll be seeing the first one as the relay. So relay is nothing but an electromagnetic device. It's an electromagnetic device which performs the dynamic path selection. So it is used for dynamic path selection, and this path selection is for either signals, carrying signals or power. So this is an electromagnetic device, so which forms a dynamic path for signal or power. So this consists of a relay coil made up of insulated wire on a metal core. So you'll be having a metal core, on which there will be a winding. So this type of thing will be there. There is a relay coil is made up of an insulated wire on a metal core. And other thing which you have in the relay is metal armature with one or more contacts. So we have two parts in the relay unit. The first part is nothing but the relay coil, so which is nothing but a metal core. On the metal core, there will be an insulated wire that is called as a relay coil, and there will be a metal armature, so which may be with one or more contacts. So this relay works on the electromagnetic principle. So that means whenever we apply some voltage to the relay coil, so whenever we apply some voltage to this relay coil, so this forms the electromagnetic field. This forms the electromagnetic field around it. So due to that electromagnetic field, this metal armature, so this is nothing but the metal armature. So this contact, this metal armature will be attracted towards this. This metal armature will be attracted toward this, so this will form a closed contact. So this will form a closed contact. So this forms a path for either the signal or power. That means whatever this closed contact will form a path for carrying the power or signal. So this is how a relay works. Whenever relay is powered up, so it forms an electromagnetic field around the coil, and that electromagnetic field will attract or repel the metal armature. So whenever it is attracted towards it, so in this case it forms the closed contact, so which forms the path for either the signal or power. And we have here three different configurations as related to the single pole. We have single pole, single throw. The two configurations which we can see here is nothing but single pole, single throw itself. But here it is normally open, and here it is normally closed. So both of them are single pole, single throw itself. But in this case, the initial position is nothing but open position. But here the initial position is closed. So that means here when we apply an voltage, so generally the open position that gets closed. But here, so when we apply the relay voltage, that means when we apply some voltage to this relay coil, so this forms an electromagnetic field which will repel this coil. That means normally in the closed position, it will become open whenever the relay coil is powered. And here it is single pole double throw. Single pole double throw. So here in this, when relay coil is powered up, so it may form contact with any one of the contact point. It may form a contact. It is normally, if it is normally connected to this contact point, whenever it is powered up, so it may form contact to this one. So it may be to any one of the contact. Normally one will be closed and other will be open. And whenever it is powered up, the first one which is connected will be changed to the second one closed. So like that, this relay coil can be used for forming the path for signal or current, or we can say signal or power. And next, so as these are connected to the devices, so this forms a path, and this path is connected to some of the loads. So sometimes this load may not be driven by the relay circuit. So we require some driver circuit for driving the load connected to the relay, and that circuits are called as the relay driver circuit. That circuits are called as the relay driver circuits. So this is connected to the port pin of the microprocessor or microcontroller. So you can find here, this is the port pin. It may be a microcontroller pin, and after that we have this part. So this part is nothing but the relay driver circuit part, and then we have the relay. Then we have the relay. So whatever this relay is there, so that may not be driven sometimes by the port pin. That means the port pin voltage may not be sufficient to make the switch on or off. So in that cases, it need to be driven by some circuit, and that circuit is called as a relay driver circuit. And this in turn can on or off the relay switch, and based on that the load connected will be on or off. So for building this relay circuit, so there will be a transistor. That means in the relay driver circuit there will be a transistor and a diode. A diode, and this diode is called as the freewheeling diode. This is called as the freewheeling diode. And whatever this transistor used in the relay driver circuit, so this is selected depending on the relay driving current requirement. That means so we need to power up the relay, so that amount of current should be provided by the transistor. So we need to select the transistor in such manner for driving the relay coil. And we have also this diode. So generally this diode is for avoiding the back current, the back current. That means whenever there is a back current, this diode will form an open circuit, so that will not damage the microcontroller. So that's why the diode is placed in the path of the between the port pin and the relay coil. And next we have push button switch. We have push button switch. So this is nothing but an input device. This is an input device, and generally it comes in two configurations. It comes in two configurations. So one configuration is push to make, and other configuration is push to break. That means whenever we push, it forms a connection. So that is called as push to make. And push to break is nothing but when we push it, so it opens the contact. That is called as the push to break. So you can see here. So push to make configuration, the switch is normally in open state, as I told earlier. So generally it will be in the open state, and whenever you push it, it makes a circuit contact when it is pushed or pressed. So that's how the push to make will button. When we push it, it forms a contact and it forms the path. And next, push to break is nothing but just opposite to the push to make. So where switch is normally in the closed state itself. It is in the closed state itself, but it breaks the circuit or it opens the circuit whenever it is pushed or pressed. Whenever it is pushed or pressed, it breaks the circuit, or we can say opens the circuit. And we can say that in the push to make, the default position is nothing but open, and push to break, the default position is nothing but closed. And when we just push it, the push to make will form the closed contact, and when we just push it in the push to break, it forms the open, or we can say contact will be open. So you can see here, push to push button stays in closed for push to make, or open for push to break type. So that means state as long as it is kept in the pushed state. As long as kept in the pushed state. It means whenever we push it, so for the push to make, what happens is it will be in the closed position. And in the push to break, when we push it, it forms the open. So that is nothing but the state whenever we push it, in the case of push to make or push to break. And it breaks or makes the circuit connection when it is released. That means whatever we have discussed, push to make and push to break. And next, this push button is generally used for generating a momentary pulse. It is used for generating a momentary pulse. And why we require momentary pulse means in some of the devices, so that momentary pulse will send a control signal. That means so whenever there is an indication to be given, just we need to press this button. So that will send the signal to the microcontroller. So like to on the device. Suppose you can say when we need to on a device, just you need to push the button. So that is nothing but power button. Generally we will be using power button for making any of the device on. So that pushing that button will send a momentary pulse to on the device. So like that, the push button will be used as an input device for the microcontroller, or we can say for an embedded system. And see here, so this circuit is called as a low pulse generator, and this is called as a high pulse generator. So why this is called as a low pulse generator means, so whenever it is pushed, it is nothing but a push to make type of button, and when we push it, it forms the path to the ground. Or we can say low, or we can say zero. It forms the path to the ground. It is nothing but low or zero. And here, so that it is called as a low pulse generator. And you can see here, whenever we push this button, then what happens is, so it will form a path to the VCC. It will form a path to VCC, that is nothing but high. We can say 1, logic 1 or high, so that it is called as the high pulse generator. So these two buttons are nothing but the push to make buttons itself. So whenever we push it, it forms a contact to the ground, so that it is called as a low pulse generator. And when we press here or push here, then it forms a contact to the VCC, which is nothing but high pulse generator. And the next IO device which we will be discussing is about keyboard. So as you know, in every computer and laptop or any device where we need to input some data, you require a keyboard. So it is nothing but an input device for user interfacing. That means so to have an interaction with the user, so you need to have a keyboard, or we can also say about a mouse. So to having an interaction with a device. So you can give input to the device by using that keyboard or mouse. So keyboard is, we are discussing about keyboard. So we'll be seeing more details about the keyboard. And next, if the number of keys required are very limited, then push button switches can be used. That means if we require some only on, off or reset, just you can go for just 3 push buttons. That will be enough. But if you have inputs that are very large in number, that means you have more number of inputs that can be given to the embedded system, then you require a keyboard. Okay, so if you have more number of inputs, or we can say more number of keys that can be given to the system, you need to use the A port pins. You need to use the port pins for each input. So that cannot be done. Why? Because in a microprocessor or a microcontroller, there will be limited. In a microprocessor, you don't have port pins, and in a microcontroller, you will be having the limited number of port pins. So you need to use that port pins accordingly. So for an optimum solution, we can go for a matrix keyboard. For an optimal solution, we can go for a matrix keyboard. So this can handle large number of key requirements. This can handle large number of key requirements. Why? Because the port pins are limited. So we need to optimally use the port pins. So for that purpose, we can go with the matrix keyboard. So it reduces number of interface connections also. When you use a matrix keyboard, it also reduces the interface connections, and also the matrix keyboard connects the keys in row and column fashion. In row and column fashion. That means so it will be forming the rows and columns. So these are the rows and columns. So each row column will be forming a key. That means you can use with each row and column, you can define a key like this. Suppose we can use this for some A as one key, B as one other key. So you can use this A as one key and B as other key. So like that you can give C, D, E, F. Okay. So you can give any key based on the requirement. You can go for that many rows and columns. Suppose if you require 16 keys, so you can go with the 4 by 4. There is 4 columns and 4 rows. So which can form 16 keys. So that means if you are taking 4 by 4, that is 4 rows and 4 columns. 4 rows and 4 columns. So you can see here, so each row and column will be forming contact. That means here we can go with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. That means also you can take for easy understanding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So total of 16 keys are available. So by taking 4 rows and 4 columns. So if we go for general 16 keys individually, then you need to place some 16 push buttons, and each push button need to be interfaced with a port pin. So generally if you are going for an 16-bit microcontroller or some 8051 microcontroller, so you will be having the port 32 port pins, and there is each 4 ports with uh, each 8 pins, so that you will be getting total 8 into 4 32 pins. So that means total 2 ports you need to use it for interfacing this push buttons itself. And even the arrangement of all these push buttons also will make the circuit very much complex. So rather than, you can choose a 4x4 matrix keyboard and connect it to 8 pins only. Why? Because you need to connect 4 columns and 4 rows. Total you require only 8 lines, or we can say 8 port pins are sufficient to connect it is 4x4 matrix keyboard. And see, each key press is identified by row column scanning technique. So we'll be discussing more about this row column scanning technique. So this is nothing but a 4x4 matrix which we have discussed just now. So you are having here 4 rows. There is row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3, and column 0, column 1, column 2, column 3. So you can see here each push button which is being represented represents a key. So this rows as well as the columns are connected to the microcontroller or microprocessor port pins. And how this keys are identified means, so first initially each row is being made to low. Each row is being made to low. Each row is being made to low, or we can say it is grounded. Next it will check for the columns. It will check for the columns. So whenever each row is being made low, and if the columns are checked, if we have any column output as 1, if we have any column output as 1, then we need to identify that column key has been pressed. Suppose that here we have a key. Here we have a key. Then you can identify, then you will be getting 1 here, and you need to identify that. So any of these 4 column keys, any one of the 4, or we can say even any 2 also we can consider, any of the 4 column keys has been pressed. So you need not bother about the other columns. So if you have 2 columns pressed, you will be getting even 1 at the other thing also. But as we are rounding here, you will be able to identify in which column. As we are going for a single press only, so we will not be considering this case at present. Okay, so we will be just considering a single press. So that just we are thinking that only 1 key is pressed, and so suppose that this key has been pressed. Suppose this key has been pressed. So as initially we are making all the rows to 0, as we are making all the rows to 0, and the columns are being read, then you will identify 1 in the column where that key has been pressed. So as these are rounded, you can see here, so as no key is pressed, so it will be directly reading 0. And here also, so these are grounded, but see, so whenever it is closed, so this will be connecting it to VCC. This forms a contact with the VCC, and you will be able to get 1 here. And next, whenever you go for this column also, so you will not find anything. Why? Because no key is pressed here. So you will be getting here also a 0. And in this case also you will be getting a 0. Why? Because these are directly, just see, if we consider this column, so these are rounded. We are rounding each row. So that you will be getting the 0 output. So next, Next, what we need to do, or next, what the keyboard will be doing is, so it will identify that one of the column has been pressed, one of the column key has been pressed. So this column key has been pressed. But we also should know that which row, we know the column, but we also should know about the row of the column. So for that, what it will do is, first it will ground the only row 0. Only row 0 is grounded and all others are not grounded. So whenever it is not grounded, then what happens is, it will also once again scan for the the readings of that column. So then you will be getting there all zeros itself. Why? Because we are reading this one, so we'll be getting there zeros. And next we'll check for the second, that is row 1. So in row 1, you will be able to identify that as this key is pressed, you will be getting 1 here. So by that we can identify that in the particular column, the particular row has been pressed. So this is how the key will be identified. So by scanning the rows and columns, we will try to identify the the which key has been pressed, and accordingly the control signal will be sent to the microprocessor or microcontroller. So next, the other unit, other part in this unit is the PPI, or we can say in this topic is PPI. So why we are saying other part means, for connecting all this the input and output device, we require ports. So in microprocessor, in some of the microprocessor, you may not be available directly with the ports. So you need to align an external chip for providing the input output ports. So PPI is nothing but one such device, so which will be providing the I/O capabilities to the processor and controllers. So most of the microcontrollers will be having built-in I/O ports, but some of the microprocessor like 8086 does not have ports. So that need to be aligned with the 8255 PPI to have input-output ports. So 8255A is nothing but the popular PPI device for 8-bit microprocessor controllers. So generally, we can say for 8086 there is 16-bit microprocessor also. So 8255 is used as the PPI for getting the input-output ports. And 8255 supports 24 I/O pins. It supports 24 I/O pins, and this I/O pins are grouped either 3 8-bit parallel ports as A, B, C. That means we will be having port A 8 pins, port B 8 pins, and port C 8 pins. So total 8 into 3, 24 I/O pins. That means each port pin can be used as input or output. So that we can say 24 I/O pins. Or we have two 8-bit parallel ports, that is port A and port B. So they are taken as the two 8-bit parallel ports, and port C can be used for any one of the following. The first configuration is that all port A, all three ports, that is port A, port B, port C, can be used as individual I/O ports. That means total we will be having 24 I/O pins. Or it can be used in other configuration where the A and B considered as two 8-bit parallel I/O ports, and the port C can be considered in the following way, that is as an individual I/O pin, that is 8-bit individual I/O pin, or two 4-bit ports as port C upper and port C lower. So you can just see here clearly. So A, B, and C. So these three, each is nothing but 8-bit. So each of them is 8-bit 8-bit parallel ports. So each is 8-bit parallel ports. Coming to the second configuration, A and B. So only these two are nothing but considered as the 8-bit parallel ports. But coming to the C, so C can be considered as individual I/O pins. C can be considered as individual I/O pins, or it can be considered as two parts. C can be considered as CU and CL. So there is C upper and C lower. So this is one configuration and this is the other configuration. So in this configuration, whatever A, B, C, three are considered as 8-bit parallel ports. But in the other configuration, A and B are considered as two 8-bit parallel ports, and C can be considered as an 8-bit individual I/O pins, or can be considered as two 4-bit ports, that is CU, CL. So the configuration of these ports, we are saying that I/O ports, but we need to know that which is used as input and which is used as output. For that, we have a control register. We have a control register for configuring this ports as input or output, and even for selection of the mode of the ports also. So it's an 8-bit register. There is D7 to D0. So we'll be seeing in the next slide. So what each bit of this control register represent. So in the D0 bit, so we have port C, lower I/O mode selector. So this port C, lower I/O mode selector is in the D0. So if D0 is equal to 1, D0 is equal to 1, so it sets CL as the input port. So as we have discussed here in the second configuration, so the C port can be considered as two parts, CL and CU. So whatever this D0 bit is there, that is associated with a CL. That is associated with a CL 4-bit port. So for selecting the CL as a 4-bit input port or output port, so we will be using this D0 bit. If you set this as 1, so this CL is considered as an input port for any of the ports. So if you are setting that bit as 1, so that will be treated as an input port, and if you are setting that as 0, it will be treated as the output port. The default one is nothing but 0, so all ports in default can be called as the output ports itself. Next we have D1. So D1 is nothing but port B I/O mode selector. Port B I/O mode selector. So here also port B is nothing but an 8-bit port. So it's an 8-bit port. So when you set that bit as 1, so it is considered as an input port. And if you set that as a 0, it is considered as an output port. Next we have D2. So D2 is nothing but mode selector for port C lower and port B. So this is nothing but port C lower and port B. So there will be mode associated with this group. There will be mode associated with the port C lower and port B. So this you can consider this configuration here. So here we have A, B as 8-bit parallel ports, and we have CU and CL. So the second configuration we are taking here. So in the second configuration, we will be having A and C upper as one group. That is port A is nothing but 8-bit parallel port, and CU is parallel, that is the I/O port, and CU is nothing but a 4-bit I/O port. And next other group is nothing but B and CL. So we discussed D0 with respect to CL, and we discussed about D1 with respect to port B. And whatever D2 is there, so that is for selecting the mode of this port B and port C lower. So in this port C lower and port B, we have D20. D20 indicates that port B functions as an 8-bit IO port and port C lower as a 4-bit port. So this can be treated as an IO port. Whatever port B is there, that is considered as an 8-bit IO port, and port C lower is considered as a 4-bit port. So that is the default one. And next D2 equal to 1. So mode we will be considering this as a mode 1. So in this D2, as I told, so this is for mode selection of this port C lower and port B. So D20 indicates mode 0. So where the port B is selected as an 8-bit parallel port, or we can say IO port, and port C lower is nothing but considered as the 4-bit port. And next D21 represents mode 1. So where we'll be using it for considering it as handshake mode. So port B, so where port B is treated as an 8-bit IO port itself, but it uses 3 bits of the port C for handshake signals. So handshake signals means acknowledgement signals. So for sending the acknowledgement we will be using this port C lower for the port A. That means whatever the data sent over port B, if that is being successfully sent, then we can get an acknowledgement by using 3 bits of the port C. So that whatever 3 bits we are getting data, we call them as a handshake signals. So similarly, we have the other group. What is the other group means? Port A and port C upper. So we'll be seeing about port C upper in D3 bit. So D3 upper, D3. So where we will be using D30 as an output port. D30 indicates that it is an output port CU, that is port C upper, and D31 indicates that the port C upper is an input port. As I told earlier, for any of the port, if we have the bit as 0, then we call it as an output port, and if we have 1, we call it as an input port. Next, coming to the D4 bit, so it is used for selecting the IO mode of the port A. So if we have that as 1, then the port A is considered as an input port. If it is 0, port A is considered as an output port. So next, for this group, whatever this group consists of, port C upper and port A. So these two forms a group, and the modes associated with this group is selected by using the D6 and D5 bits. See here, port C lower and port B mode can be selected by using only one bit, that is D2 bit itself. But here for D3, there is nothing but for port C upper and port A. So the mode selection is done using 2 bits, that is D6 and D5. So when you have D6, D5 as 0, 0, so that is considered as mode 0. We call it as a simple IO mode. So where we can say that port A is an 8-bit IO port, and port C upper is an 4-bit IO port. Next we have D6, D5 equal to 0, 1. So that is considered as mode 1, or we can say handshake mode. Like whatever handshake mode we have seen here in the D2 also, the similar handshake mode. So port A is considered as an 8-bit port itself, but port C 3 bits are considered as handshake signals for this port A IO pins. Okay, and next we have D6, D5 equal to 1x. So where 1x can be 1, 0 or 1, 1, and that is called as a mode 2. So as you can see, x can be 0 or 1. So in this case, the port A can act as a bidirectional port. That means it can be used as both input as well as the output device. Whenever we say input, so we can connect an input device, and when we say an output, we can connect an output device. So, but if we have D6, D5 as 1x, that is 1 0 or 1 1. So you can use one port for that is as an output as well as the input. So that is about the mode selection for the group CU and A. And D2 is nothing but mode selection for CL and B. That is port C lower and port B. And next we have the last one, that is D7. D7 is nothing but the controller data mode selector for the port C. So as I told earlier, so we have two configurations associated with this port C. So in the first configuration, they can be taken as A, B, C can be taken as the 8-bit IO ports itself. And in this the second configuration, we have seen that the port A, port B are considered as 8-bit ports. C can be either considered as an C individual 8-bit port, or it can be treated as the two half parts. So whatever the modes and the input output setting, we have seen that with respect to the this case, with respect to the this case, that is CU and CL, but we haven't seen about individual C. So the individual C can be seen in the D7 bit. D7 bit. So where D7 is equal to 1 represents the IO mode. Where D7 is equal to 1 represents the IO mode. That means whatever all this we have selected, so that will be right. And if we have D7 is equal to 0, when we have D7 is equal to 0, so that mode is called as the BSR mode, or we can say bit set reset mode. So where the port A and port B, port A and port B, port A and port B can be used for used as a normal ports, and the port C individual pins can be used for the port pin, that is IO pin, that is input pin or output pin. That means you can use PC0, PC1, PC2 up to PC7, as each pin can be set as input or output individually. So that is about the BSR. Next we have interfacing part of the PPI with the microprocessor or microcontroller. So where the microprocessor and microcontroller should be connected to the port pins available from 8255. So for this we require the data lines of the microprocessor and microcontroller connected to the PPI, as well as there should be a chip select pin. There should be a chip select pin, so which will provide the control signal to make this 8255 on or off according to the address provided by the microprocessor or microcontroller. And by this you will be available with the three ports, that is port A, PA0 to PA7, and port B, that is PB0 to PB7, and port C, PC0 to PC7. And this chip select is connected with the address lines which are provided by the microprocessor or microcontroller. As we have the multiplexed address and data line, that is AD0 to AD7. If it is an 8-bit microprocessor or microcontroller, so you will be having the data lines D0 to D7, and then multiplexed with the address lines A0 to A7. To separate the address and data lines, you will be using a latch. So this latch separates the address from the multiplexed address and data lines, and they are provided to the address decoder along with the higher order address, that is A0 to A15. So these all, that is A2 to A7 and A8 to A15. So all these address gets decoded, and that will provide a chip select pin to enable or disable the 8255. And A0 and A1 are separately connected to the 8255 for control purposes. And for writing to the device or reading to the device, so you require a read and write bar.
pins, and that read bar and write bar from microprocessor and microcontroller connected to the read or write bar to the 8255. And also for resetting the 8255, that means some of them port pins may be set as input or output. If you need to change them to as output to input or input to output, you need to reset them, and that can be done by using the reset pin. And in the next unit, in the next lecture, we'll be studying about the next part of this unit, that is communication interfaces. We have onboard communication interface and external communication interfaces, so which we'll be discussing in the next lecture. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe to the channel for more videos on embedded system design course.